Hello, I'm Ash from What Culture, and I'm here today to talk to you about a subject that is very close to my heart, and that, of course, is psychopathic murderers. Or at least one psychopathic murderer in particular. Born from Alfred Hitchcock's psychological thriller Psycho, Norman Bates is the OG slasher villain, and I hope you held onto your pants for that 60-year-old spoiler, but the film introduces so many cinema firsts that you've likely seen his likeness appear over various pop culture things throughout the years. It even managed to inspire a genre in its own right, with all the seminal slashers of the 70s and 80s following in Psycho's footsteps. Thank you, Alfred Hitchcock, wherever you are. Thank you. It truly is a masterpiece and one of cinema's most suspenseful efforts. It also does something that not many other films have tried to do, or maybe have tried to do since watching Psycho, and that all lies in a cunning switch of perspective. Now, context is key, and upon first watching Psycho, Anthony Perkins is intent on delivering a performance that makes us pity him, unlike his ghostly mother, who is supposed to be reviled. The whole effect is something that manages to achieve the unthinkable. It makes us an accomplice in murder. Now sand your fingertips and set up the safe house as we're going on a ride. This is how Psycho tricks you into becoming an accomplice in murder. 3. Marions Scheme and the journey to Bates Motel. Although the most iconic moments happen once Marion enters the foreboding Bates Motel, the opening sequences are the most suspenseful. Marion, embroiled in a scheme to take away $40,000, is obviously quite anxious when she sets off on her getaway to escape from the place where she's taken all the money out of, aka her old job. Immediately, everyone that's introduced on screen is a potential accuser or someone that's going to mess things up for Marion along the way. And we're kind of rooting for her. We don't want anything to go wrong, so the whole journey towards the Bates Motel is quite suspenseful, as we're quite worried about her. We don't want her to get caught out by all these horrible people that keep popping up. This is the first moment that Hitchcock makes the audience fear for Marion, as if we too are making a quick getaway, and it makes her pulling over the Bates Motel so terrifying. She has to stop, and we don't really want her to. We want her to make it out of the state, get out of there, don't want her to end up in an Arizonan prison, as nobody wants to end up in an Arizonan prison. Take the money and run, bitch, get out of here. But alas, she can't, and it gets worse. As Marion loses sight of the road, so do we as the viewer lose sight of her journey. The neon lights in this instance don't act as a beacon of refuge, but rather a giant blinking warning sign. The entire sequence plays out like a nightmare that we and Marion are subjected to, as we don't know where she is or what's going on or what could potentially happen. There's plenty that could go wrong, especially with 40 grand in her back pocket. And then we're introduced to Norman Bates.
Number 2, we all go a little mad sometimes. Anthony Perkins' performance as Norman Bates is truly superb, but while we all associate it with that final shot of him locked away in the police interview room, it's best exemplified through Norman's own personality. We see him meet Marion as a recluse who supposedly spends most of his time with his mother. Marion, undoubtedly wary of Norman, doesn't spend too long with him, but the main impression of him in this moment is that of a timid, meek boy. The fact that he has, and apologies to all taxidermists watching this, a bit of a weird hobby just further cements this idea that yes, he is a bit unusual, but he's ultimately harmless. He is a perfectly fine hotel owner, simply burdened with an overbearing mother. It's in this moment where the whole mother thing is supposed to be antagonized. Like, Marion herself makes a comment that her presence must be damaging to Norman, and this just kind of seals down that idea that it's a toxic influence. Clearly, this is a man unwilling to accept that his mother is a negative influence, and when Marion is eventually murdered by that very figure, Norman's position as her carer dictates that he safeguard her interests. Remember, we don't know that they're one and the same at the moment. He's merely a pitiful accomplice to the authoritative villain of the piece. In a tragic and slightly ironic mirroring of the first act, Hitchcock illustrates Norman's attempts to get away with the crime. He scrubs the shower clean, he dumps her car and her body in a nearby swamp, and this is where the film accomplishes its greatest feat. Number 1, how Psycho makes its audience complicit. No messing about here, Hitchcock was a master of suspense. And with Marion out of the way, the only character we can project that suspense onto is Norman. This comes to a head as he attempts to cover up Marion's disappearance and is exemplified best during the sequence where he pushes a car into the swamp. I mean, this is a do or die moment for Norman. He fidgets really nervous. He keeps exchanging nervous looks at the camera as the car sinks and stops. Panic engulfs him and the audience at the exact same time until finally just submerges along with all of his worries. This is remarkably similar to Marion's own attempts to evade the law. And because the audience was held under suspense in a similar way earlier in the film, they do, on some level, sympathize with Norman here, even if he is trying to cover up the grisly crimes he's just committed. It may just be a brief flutter of sympathy, given the subsequent death of private investigator Milton minutes later, but it's only upon his arrival that the point of view switches yet again. And even again after that, as two new protagonists appear in the form of Leela and Sam. Until that happens though, for those few brief moments, the entire audience is right there alongside Norman. We are emotionally invested in his crimes. And for all the terrifying moments Psycho can boast, is that not the scariest that we are as an audience right there alongside him? We are emotionally complicit in that murder. So there you go, that is how Psycho makes you complicit in a murder. Let us know what you made of it in the comments below, and of course don't forget to like, share and subscribe. You can follow either of us on Twitter here somewhere, and What Culture on Twitter in the corner as well. In the meantime though, thank you very much for watching. Look, she's alright really, aren't you? Come on. There you go. See, it's acting. That was fun. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. I've been Adam, that was Ash, and we will see you soon. Bye.